If you're a homeowner, I'm sure you've heard of the acronym ADU, and it's probably crossed your mind maybe once or twice, the thought of, should I add one to my property? Well, I'm Yadi with Foothill Credit Union, and today we have partnered with Daniel Boyer from Southland Properties to answer all of the questions you guys may have. And even if you don't have any questions and you might just be curious, he's giving us all the details on adding an ADU to your property. So I'm sure he's in the back somewhere. Let's go find him. All right, everyone, we're here with Daniel. So Daniel, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background.
Absolutely. Daniel Boyer, longtime Glendora resident and business owner here locally, Southland Properties, downtown Glendora. Been in the real estate business for over 20 years, and we do a lot of house flipping and house renovations and build ADUs as well.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so can you give us a tour of this beautiful ADU that you just did?
Absolutely. Just finished this one up. You guys will see that there's still some work to do, but would love to show this thing off to you guys. It turned out fantastic. This is a small 375 square foot ADU. Custom built cabinets, still working, waiting on the countertops to get done, but take a look at the kitchen. Purposes of this ADU are actually going to be used for an office as well as an extra sleeping quarter. But that's the main purpose is what they're going to be using it for. So they are looking at putting a Murphy bed into the wall that will fold down, as well as a desk. This is not the decoration that's going to be in here. They're waiting for the construction to get done. But as you can see, it's a functional unit, windows, lots of light, lots of area, and a beautiful view out to the pool and yard as well.
So you would say this is about 90%, 95% finished, right?
Yes, about 90-95% finished. They got the countertops, sinks, some plumbing left to do, and then really it just comes down to the decor and final touches. But overall, exterior-wise is completely finished up and just some interior things to still get done.
Before this was kind of all grass, so that's what you do as well, right? It's not just the ADU, it's kind of like the surrounding areas.
It's the entire process through. So from the ground up, from getting permits done through the city, design plans, all of that, all the way through the final touches of the rose bushes going in.
Yes.
Can all be handled.
Okay, Daniel, so tell me, what exactly is an ADU?
So an ADU is actually an accessory dwelling unit, which is a second residence on your property. Pretty much similar to a grandma's unit. And so pretty much this is a great advantage to California real estate that you can add an ADU onto your property. It's actually a new law, AB 68, that allows you to add 2 ADUs onto your property. And the ordinances are actually in the favor of the homeowner, in which cities cannot stop you from doing so. California has a huge housing crisis, and so they're trying to push homeowners to add more housing. So ADUs are typically under 1,200 square feet. And they are separate structures, although we have seen them in which you can convert your garage and you can convert other portions of the house into ADUs. But really, we're just trying to explore the opportunity of adding more housing to California.
For someone who's kind of looking to add an ADU to their property, can you go through the process of how it might look like for somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first is you want to get with an architect and actually go through the process of figuring out what the design that you're looking for. A lot of times the design process is important because it just depends on what you as a homeowner are looking for. In this case, they were looking for an exterior office. In a lot of cases, they're looking for maybe a rental unit or a place for their children to live or something of that sort. So a lot of it comes down to what you're looking for. And that's a process designed with an architect and usually the contractor or builder who's going to be doing it. Mm-hmm. Next steps would be actually going to the city and getting those permits filed, those plans approved, so that you can begin construction on the property. Once that's all approved, which is taking a little bit longer than normal right now, ever since COVID, things have been taking a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But once those are approved, you can actually start breaking ground and get the building going.
Nice.
Yeah.
And in terms of like finding an architecture and all that stuff, would you do that work, or that's something that they would probably look for?
It's absolutely something that we can help connect people to and get them set up with. We have those connections to get everything handled for you guys as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the permits and all of that.
Yep,
you
the
handle
whole
all
thing
of it.
is handled that way.
It's just give me your budget. What do you want?
Yes,
Perfect.
It can be done any way you like. There are people who we know who do owner builder as well, in which they go down and pull the permits, which is legal, and you can go get the permits and plans and everything approved, and then still hire a contractor to do some of the work, and you do some of the work. So I mean, everything is pretty open as far as how you want to do it. It's just everyone's unique situation.
Yeah, and I'm guessing budget obviously plays a really big role. So tell me pricing, is there a range depending, just so we can give our members an idea of what they should be budgeting?
Absolutely. Typical ADU right now is costing somewhere around $125,000 to $150,000. But as I tell all clients, you can spend as much as you want, depending on the final touches and things that you want to put into it, based on also the size that you're going into it. So a lot of those things come into play, but if you're just trying to get a general idea of what an ADU is going to cost you, I would say $100,000 on the low end, and then probably closer to $200,000 to $250,000 on the high end to go with something on, the larger side.
So in terms of the price of building one of these, do you require any deposits or down before, kind of like how the budget works for somebody?
Yes, absolutely. So usually up front, you're going to be looking at a 10% deposit whenever you're getting into any construction processes.
Yeah.
And any contractor should have a timeline of the project throughout. Don't ever pay off your contractor until you're completely satisfied and happy with the final results. That's something that a lot of people get into. But the timeline usually takes place as different processes throughout the construction go. So when you get the windows and certain things done, they would collect a payment, and then after that, when the flooring and certain other things are done, there's another payment. But that timeline should always be presented to you at the very beginning so that you know exactly how much it's going to be and when those payments are going to be taken into account. But something to remember, just like in all construction, as you're building, things change, right? You're going to want something different, want something new. So just remember that every time you make a change, there is a good chance that's going to end up costing more.
So in terms of size, in California, is there you can only go a certain size, like a restriction or a limit?
Yeah, so the main restrictions with building an ADU right now are basically they have to be under 1,200 square feet, and they have to have 4-foot setbacks from the back wall and the side wall. So those are kind of the two things that come into play. Outside of that, it's pretty open because they do want to see people putting these in. Mm-hmm. So most ADUs are somewhere between 800 square feet and 1,200 square feet.
Awesome. And so tell me, who do you think would really benefit from an ADU?
Right now it's crazy because there's just so many benefits of having an ADU. I mean, anything from a personal office or just a place to get away, a pool house style thing, all the way to a place for your kids. As we're seeing things are much more expensive for young people trying to grow up and get on their own in their own house. As well as you start to get older and your parents might need a place or your grandparents might need a place to live as well. So I mean, there's a lot of benefits to having an ADU. And again, with the restrictions being so easy right now in the state of California, it is a good time to put one in. And if you drive around town, you're probably going to see quite a few houses with construction because they are popular right now.
Yeah. Actually, I think we were discussing, we've seen a lot of ADUs start popping up. So they're definitely.
Well, the other thing that a lot of people don't understand is just by putting in an ADU, you can rent it out. It can become a rental unit for you. And we just built one down in South Glendora that they're getting $2,200 a month for their ADU. And so that's helping with their mortgage on the front house. And so we're seeing a lot of people trying to get creative, again, with houses and interest rates and things being so expensive. How can they come up with a way to afford it? Something interesting that's coming in the future that we're going to have to keep an eye on is they're actually looking at allowing you to sell your ADUs, which would get very interesting as far as how that would play out, having ADU on your property that someone else owns and lives in as a condo on your property. So things are going to get interesting, but they're just continuously trying to increase housing.
Yes. Oh yes, definitely. But it seems like there's tons of benefits.
There are a ton of benefits.
So Daniel, if somebody somebody ends up selling their house, what happens to the ADU?
So in most cases, an ADU will actually increase the value of your home. And this is another benefit of having an ADU. So a lot of times you're spending maybe $200,000 on an ADU, but it's increasing your home by $300,000. So a lot of times there is benefits in having it. People don't want to go through the process of the construction and all of that type of stuff. So from a real estate standpoint, we have seen properties with ADUs selling higher than properties without them. Mm-hmm. And so it is one of those things. If you have somebody in there as far as a tenant or something of that sort, just like regular California standard laws, you would have to apply those same laws with the sale of your home. So if you have a year-long contract with somebody, the new homeowner would have to abide by that contract. And in California, we also know it's difficult to evict right now, so that has been one of the negative sides of dealing with tenants in ADUs or other properties as well. When you are moving in based on your situation, you know, you may not want somebody in the back unit or whatever it might be. So you just got to be careful as how you look at it. It's going to fit into your lifestyle and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So Daniel, do you know how will adding an ADU affect someone's insurance policy?
Yes, so again, not an insurance agent, but just like with any real estate, when you add real estate property or value to a property, your insurance is going to be affected as well. Because if you just had a single family home, your insurance covered just the rebuilding of that single family home. Adding a second unit, you now have to take that into factor. So your insurance is going to increase. And something else, again, with California right now and a lot of the issues with insurance companies, it's just one of those things you probably want to research prior on how that's going to affect things, and even if the insurance company will take on the process of that ADU, because we are seeing some of those issues.
Okay, Daniel, so approximately how long does it take to build an ADU?
You know, this is always a great question because contractors are always going to tell you probably a smaller number than what it's actually going to take. But normally you are looking somewhere between 4 and 6 months from beginning to end. But I will say one of the hardest things right now is actually getting the plans approved. And so that's something that is taking time. A lot of times it's taking 30 days, and if there's a change, they add another 30 days to inspect the plans and whatnot. So I would say from the starting point of your plans are fully approved and the building begins, that you're looking at more at 4 to 6 months from that point. Okay. So if you take that into factor, that's pretty much, you know, beginning to end of what you should be looking at.
Since it's separate from your actual home, usually it doesn't really disrupt like their everyday lives and all of that stuff, right? Because it's separate.
Yes and no. Okay. Construction always disrupts life.
Yeah.
You know, just having contractors working at your house, doing different things, the noise, all of that kind of stuff. It's never an easy process, but at the end of it, you have something that's absolutely amazing that your family gets to use. And I always tell people, you know, it's a pain and a struggle during the time, but 3 months after it's done, you'll forget about all of that and you'll be happy with the results, because that's going to last your family forever. So
I know that, you know, maybe to some people 100 to 125 grand might seem kind of crazy or a lot of money, but you know, your house is an asset. Right. So I'm pretty sure you've seen plenty of people take out HELOCs or HE loans on their home, and just like you said, it helps increase the value of your home. Right. So it's like an investment in a sense.
It is an investment, and it's funny because if you actually think about it, where else in California can you buy a unit for $200,000? It's not possible.
Right.
And if it is, you're usually, you know, not able to rent it out or whatnot it might be. So where else can you get a rental property in your neighborhood so close to your home that's actually going to be paying you decent returns on your investment compared to actually buying a new house that's a rental? And so in a lot of ways, ADUs are a great factor to try and increase your real estate portfolio and long-term wealth and investment.
Are there any drawbacks that you can think of that we haven't discussed yet?
One of the drawbacks, or one of the things to keep in mind, is parking. That's something that's kind of an issue that comes into play, especially in the city of Glendora, just because you're not allowed to park on the street. Some other cities that are, you know, localized, you can park on the street, so it's not as much of a play. But when you are building an ADU, or even two with the new law that it's allowing, you have to still be able to figure out parking for everybody that's going to be living on the property.
Oh, that's great. Parking, that's actually a really big one.
Yes.
I think a lot of people too, when they're looking for a rental, they're looking to make sure that there is that parking available too.
Yes, and especially with things now, we have multiple families living in houses or more people living in a property just to try and keep costs down, that parking has become a major player in that game.
Daniel, is there anything you want to add?
Really, I personally believe these are great opportunities for people to, you know, I'm a real estate guy, I'm all about increasing real estate and your portfolio. They're great retirement aspects as well. I have multiple clients who have built an ADU, not specifically for them now, but for future use. If they will move into their ADU, rent out their front unit, and that's how they're looking at retiring. And so there's a lot of different ways to look at the situation of what you're trying to accomplish. And that's why when it comes down to how much it's going to cost, the design you want to get into, there's so many questions of what that's going to be, and that's why it's important to sit down and consult with somebody who can help you figure out those answers.
Yeah, that's great. And then obviously, like we said before, your house is an asset. And being able to take out the HELOC and the HE loans, and Foothill being here for our members, we definitely have those options as well. Thank you so much, Daniel. I think that's pretty much it.
No problem. Appreciate it, and thanks for having me.
Thank you.